My pleasure.
From the Orange Order. I want to focus a little bit on the OECS report on Trinidad and Tobago. TNT has been identified under the phase, under the report, as they require a review because the critical elements necessary to achieving an effective exchange of information are not in place, and we cannot move to a phase 2 review until Trinidad acts on the recommendations, the government acts on the recommendations to improve their legal and regulatory framework. That's page 36 of the OECD report. Now, the minister, well, the French president, you know the comments that he made. Mr. Sarkozy said at the closing of the G11, the G20 summit, that we are, a tax haven. Now, the Minister of Food Production, Mr. Barrett, as acting finance minister, came out and categorically denied this. He said we are not a tax haven, and yet still, the report indicates that recommendations were made to the government and they have not acted on it. How do you respond to this?
First thing is that the easiest thing to do is to deny that Trinidad and Tobago is a tax haven. But as you know, the President Sarkozy and also the OECD report to which you just referred indicates that there are certain things that are missing in the legal framework in Trinidad and Tobago, and because of that, the country is a tax haven. And the things that are missing, I think they said, is access to information and also exchange of information mechanisms to the standard, and a network of exchange of information mechanisms among the partners. I would have thought that anybody making reference to that comment would have stated whether those statements are true, whether in fact the mechanisms are in place.
Yes.
And if the mechanisms are in place, then to point out where these mechanisms are in place to inform the country. Because the easiest thing to do, and I'm sure that's how they'll respond, is that what they're saying is untrue. Trinidad is not a tax haven. But it will be a tax haven, and it is a tax haven if what is stated in the OECD's report about the absence of these mechanisms,
yes,
that I think is what is relevant.
All right. A little down the line, off the topic now, on building codes. Let's talk about building codes. I heard the Works and Infrastructure Minister said there is a need for the government to implement new building codes because the present code is ineffective after 20 years. He said the town and country and so forth is inefficient.
I am amazed at statements made by government officials, including Mr. Warner, and that is, they come out and say that this should be done and that should be done and the other should be done. And I don't know who they are speaking to. They are behaving as though they are in the opposition speaking to the government. They fail to realize that they are the government. And when Mr. Warner says that there's a need for new building codes, to whom is he speaking? Why doesn't he say these things in cabinet? Why doesn't he complain in cabinet that we need new building codes? But he comes out in the papers and say that. And I find it very strange. The government seems to be operating within an opposition syndrome in which they are calling upon somebody else beside themselves to do certain things when they are the ones to do it.
All right. Let's move away from building codes to the former Ministry of Mr. Warner, that under Mr. David Maraj now. George Nicholas. Officials at the Ministry of Finance have indicated in the newspaper, I believe it was the Mirror, one of those papers, that the Ministry of Finance is moving to get an audited statement of Caribbean Airlines after the statements by the chairman that they made a $200 million TT profit. Given in light that there's a subsidy, I mean, there is a subsidy of fuel once it's over $50 a barrel. And since 2003, the price of oil has been above $50 a barrel. So how do you respond to these statements by George Nicholas? and this whole dilemma?
Well, first of all, if Mr. Nicholas says that there has been a profit, I am sure that the records can be produced, the accounting records, to indicate this. The ministry, of course, appears not to agree or not to believe Mr. Nicholas when he said that the company has made a $200 million profit. If the accounting that Mr. Nicholas refers to excludes the subsidy, tremendous subsidy, then it ought to say so, that it is a profit of 200 million because of $300 million profits. It ought to say so. But when you come merely and say that it has made $200 million in profit, you are ignoring the fact that it is not really $200 million, and I think that is what the Ministry of Finance wants to find out.
But do you see it as, I mean, without making an allegation, do you see it as a public relations gimmick by Mr. Nicholas? Because, you know...
It certainly is an attempt to put the company in a good light and to put the Board of Management in a good light. It certainly was intended to do that. I think the Ministry of Finance suspects that, and therefore they are asking for, let us see the accounts, let us see whether this includes this enormous subsidy that they receive for gasoline.
How do you respond to reports that Mr. Nicholas, he reports directly to the Prime Minister as opposed to his line minister? How do you respond to that?
Well, I think that was a complaint of Mr. Warner.
Yes.
Mr. Warner had complained that the board of directors of Caribbean Airlines was reporting directly to the Prime Minister and not to him, who was the line minister. If that is the case, then that is bad management, and that is bound to result in problems. The line minister is responsible. When I was in cabinet, I never interfered with the work of the line ministers. I made them accountable, but I wouldn't interfere with their work. Otherwise, if you take over their work, you remove from them the responsibility.
Right.
And if that is still happening, then that is a system of government that is bound to fail.
I see. Let's move away from this now to this Color Me Orange program. What is your take on this Color Me Orange program?
I believe that it is really a campaign for the internal elections of the party. The internal elections of the UNC are due, I believe, next year.
Yes.
I have heard that it will be held in January. Now, if it is, then that is really derogating from the democracy to which we are accustomed. You cannot impose a state of emergency on everybody else and prevent them from campaigning, and then suddenly remove the state of emergency and hold elections when your opposition did not have a chance to campaign. There have been people who have been trying to take over the party, that the party has lost its way. It no longer believes in the thing which we believed in, and people are calling for taking over the party. So I believe what is happening is that the Prime Minister, having this orange,
Color Me Orange program.
Color Me Orange, as you remember, our slogan during our own elections was the Orange Revolution.
Yes, I remember.
Because that was the color with which our members wore. So the Orange Revolution has now become Color Me Orange to fit into the elections, internal party elections that are taking place. I believe that is what it is all about, really.
All right.
And I am sure the names of all the people who have been given jobs will be taken down on their addresses and so on. And most likely they will be added to the party membership list for the purposes of the election.
Well, let's go back to this election a little. Because you raised the issue of election. you see it as an election campaign strategy, right? They color me orange. So let's go back to this. It has been circulated that Glenn Ramadharsingh would be replacing Jack Warner as chairman on Kamala Prasad Bissa's slate for the internal elections. Why do you think this is? Why do you think they would him as a choice of chairman over Jack Warner? What do you think about that? Do you think that it's indicative of some dissension, or is it that he is much more capable?
Well, first thing is that this is a rumor and we shall have to wait to see whether they're going to remove Mr. Warner as chairman and probably make him deputy political leader. I don't know. We don't know what they're doing. We simply have to wait and see what they are doing. But what I do want to mention here at this point is that my experience has shown that it is a mistake to make ministers of government officers of the party. 9 out of 10 times they are too busy to attend the party elections and to attend to party matters, because they have to attend to party matters and governmental matters, and they can't do both. So that when you make ministers or also officers of the party, you are denying the party a chance of growth and success. And I believe that the party should insist that no government minister should be made an officer of the party. None. So that the party now has control over the government and not the government has control over the party. That's very important for the purposes of democracy.
Right. On another note, Mr. Glenn Ramadharsingh, last night on the news, there's a campaign with him and Louis Leasing, the mayor of Port of Spain, to remove 100 street dwellers by the Christmas. Now, I don't know, they didn't indicate what they were going to do to remove them. But last night I heard Minister Ramadharsingh on the news clip saying that these people commit acts of terrorism. Do you think that was irresponsible of him to say that street dwellers? I mean, we know that there are issues where street dwellers do commit acts of violence, but to class citizens who are socially displaced from a minister of the people and social development to describe
okay, I didn't hear the statement themselves, but it might be that the minister does not know the difference between terrorism per se and violence per se. It might be that he doesn't know the difference between the meaning, but I don't think that anybody with any rational sane judgment would believe that the street dwellers are terrorists. They're an annoyance and they probably attack people and so on, but they're not terrorists. I also heard Mr. Ramadharsingh saying that they couldn't touch the street dwellers because the law did not permit them. Again, here is a minister talking as though he's in the opposition. If the law does not allow them, the government has a majority in Parliament. Why doesn't it pass the laws that are necessary to move these people if they don't want to move? It is possible they don't want to move, and you may have to arrest them or hold them or something. If the law does not allow it, they simply go to Parliament and change the law. And all it takes is one sitting of Parliament to do that, and a sitting of the Senate. The truth is, I believe that they don't have a place to put them. And you cannot imprison them because they have not committed any offences. Yes. You can arrest them right now for vagrancy, but I believe the law with respect to vagrancy is 14 days in jail, and they come back out and go on the streets. If the law has to be changed, why doesn't the government change it? Why do they complain that the law does not allow them to hold these people, but they won't change the law?
Recently, I noticed you were on the news down in Princestown, the Naparima constituency. You said you were invited by the Pandit Mukesh Maharaj,
yes,
to raise concerns because their member of parliament was not following up with them.
I was quite surprised about that interview, because when I look at the television, I saw that the member for parliament who they couldn't find, and who wouldn't answer their letters, and who wouldn't respond to them, suddenly turned up after I had left.
Yeah.
Now, okay, fine, that's a good thing. I think I must go back to those people and find out what the member for parliament has done so far, because my belief is he will do nothing.
Well, since you have gone, nothing has happened, and the situation, we did a follow-up with them to find out if they received any sort of remedy, and I understand that since, in light of the heavy rains in the past 2 weeks, the situation has seriously deteriorated.
Okay, I think I must go back to those people.
Yeah, well, I thought I would mention it.
Yes, I certainly will. And since that interview, I've been receiving a lot of invitations from people to come and visit them for the failure of the government to perform. Some people, for example, have claimed that the roads that have been repaired have deteriorated. It was, and the roads were repaired only a few years ago. So that our complaint about that is
well. It's interesting that you brought that up, because there was a woman that wrote today's Guardian on the editorial page and said perhaps the United States should come and build a base in Point 14. As if when they built a base in Chaguaramas, roads still this day are solid roads. They haven't caved away or given away or anything. And if the United States come and they build a base there, they would fix all the roads on the way to.
That is one of the gentlemen, one of many people in the country who believe that we recolonized.
Yes.
Because that is what it is. We have to bring back the Americans and give them a base again in order to get good roads. It seems that we are incapable of governing ourselves.
Well, yes, because it brings one of my first questions to you about Vasson's Barrett's statement to categorically deny. I mean, we are a third world country. We are simply a third world country. Only, 60, 50 years old or so. How do we deal these foreign...
By being
honest?
The only way to do it. If international bodies make comments about this, the idea is not just jump up and say, it is not true. It is go and said, but it is not true because, look, there is in place this and there is in place that, and these are the facts that prove the statement is not true. You just don't jump up and say it's false.
Right.
When in fact the international bodies would have done work before they make such a comment.
Exactly. All right, well, thank you for your Mr. Panday, as always, and we look forward to seeing you go back to Naparima and these other constituencies.
And my congratulations to the camera.
All right, thank you.
I bet you force me.